Welcome to the third edition of UnComXn Minds. She's a boss. And today we're welcoming Karel Flores, or Karel Flores, depending on how you want to say it today, who is one of the most renowned salsa dancers in the global scene. And so I'll kick it off and say, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Christina. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And well, I am Karel Flores. That's how I pronounce it, but you can say however you want, right? Like I came from Mexico and I almost learned how to say my name in English. So I'll take it. Karel, Carol, whatever you want. I say Carol. So like I said, I came from Mexico. I am from Mexico City. I was born and raised there. I was born into a family of artists. And so I have kind of like the salsa and the dancing and all the artistry in my blood, you could argue. I came to New York when I was about 19 years old, just to dance salsa. And yeah, I've been here ever since. And I'm very proud to be Mexican. I'm very proud to be a woman. And I'm very proud to be a salsa dancer.
And we're so excited to have you today. So, you're one of the most recognized, most sought after dancers in the global salsa community. But what's even more remarkable than your career as a dancer is how you've been able to model the creation of a successful business through dance. Tell me a little bit about your thought process when you're creating new products, new services, thinking about new things you're going to do in the scene.
So I think that, to be quite honest, it has evolved, right? Like I personally didn't grow up in a family of like entrepreneurs or business oriented people. So I was never one to be like, oh, I'm going to start dancing and I'm going to make a career of it. Like the pieces kind of started falling into place as time went by. I had a lot of people close to me who were business oriented. I was lucky to go to a high school that was, very like entrepreneurial, right? Like everything about it was very focused on being an entrepreneur. So even though I kind of didn't have that clear goal, it only took very little like to plant the seed and then I would roll with it, right? So like when I was in Yamule, this very famous dance company in New York, for about 8 years. And for about maybe 6 of those 8 years, I was making basically no money, right? I was not like thinking about this as a business at all. I was just, focused on practicing. I was very loyal to the company. I mean, not that having a business is not being loyal, but I was just completely focused on being a part of the company and being a dancer. And then I met people in my life that were like, oh, wait, you have a lot of potential to actually monetize of your dancing. And then that's when I created my first DVD. And actually, it was very, very successful. And from there, it was like little by little, I was like, oh, maybe I can try this. So I definitely didn't do it alone. I had a lot of people around me who worked, like I said, planting those seeds. And now it's more kind of like, taking everything that I've learned throughout the years. And of course, I'm getting older. So now I think about, how to make passive income and how to make the business not so dependent on me being on a stage or flying or being on a plane or being, in a congress, but more like, being a teacher and a mentor and just taking it a little bit further than just dancing, right? So every time that I sit down, I think about those two things that are important for me. One is how to make income and how to make it a business, but also how to have an impact. So that's my thought process, right? Like finding that balance between staying true to being a dancer and a creator, because I've had people who tell me, like you should do routines that are much easier. In a boot camp, you wouldn't be, so stressed out. You wouldn't stress the girls out either. Maybe they would have a better experience and maybe you would do more or like you could make more money or whatever. And yes, it makes sense, right? In a way. But at the same time, I want to make money but stay true to who I am as a creator and as a teacher and as a woman who have always had as a goal kind of like to push the limits, right? And to push girls and women and dancers in general to be better. So I do that through making things a little bit hard for them. So that's my creative process. Understanding how to make money in a business, but also staying true to my character and my teaching and my values.
And just as a as a note here for people who don't know, when we think about, you have over 10 world teams right now. I'm not even counting the numerous ones that are in the States in different cities, plus your merchandising, plus your online classes, plus your virtual boot camps, plus, so plus, right? So you have built kind of this whole business, this whole, if we were to think about it kind of outside of the arts,
Right.
it would be a whole corporation with your different departments of all the things that you're doing. So I think you are in a great position to transition, to pivot, right? But when I think about all of the things that you're doing, that you've done, I didn't even mention the judging for competitions. I'm not mentioning the choreographing. I'm not mentioning, there are so many things that I'm not mentioning. It brings me to this concept of Renaissance people. I've been really fascinated with that lately, which is that people aren't just one thing anymore. Like it used to be that somebody might be an excellent performer and then they couldn't teach, or they couldn't teach, they couldn't train, but they could only perform. Now it's that everyone needs to be everything. Do you think that that's possible? Do you think that you can excel at everything? Do you think you have to think about what are the pieces that have to fit together? How do you think about that?
It's conflict. It's a little like in my mind, like so many pieces go together when you ask me this question, because a part of me want to say no. I don't necessarily think that if you want to be like a top performer, athlete, CEO, whatever, you cannot be a CEO and then have a bar, right? Like, or run a bar. I think that to excel, really to excel at something, you have to dedicate many years and many hours to be able to excel at something. I think that nowadays what we're seeing is people being good at many things. Being good at many things and excelling at many things are separate things. But I also think that there's times for everything, right? I dedicated 8 years in Yamule to be a performer, and I was performing at my peak. Now I don't perform at my peak, not because of my age, but because I don't train the way I used to train before, because I have other priorities. Like what? While I was performing with Yamule and while I was training with them, at the same time I was starting to teach, right? So then I was building up my teaching, I was building up my performance. Now I give a little bit more weight to my teaching, so I spend more time teaching. But because I aged, right, or I'm aging, or I'm not 25 years old anymore, so my priorities have changed. So I think that it's like, I could go into public speaking now if I wanted to, because I do so much teaching and so much public speaking, so I could potentially go gravitate that way like many athletes do, right? Because if they're an athlete, they're giving interviews constantly and they're getting comfortable with having an audience. So I don't think you can excel at things if you're doing at the same time, but I think that you can be an athlete and then eventually later in your life you can be a public speaker or an actor or whatever, right? So I think that things take time, but if at your 50s you're going to start being a public speaker, you have to kind of put the same energy and time that you did when you were starting to be a basketball player at 15.
It's needed.
Yeah.
So switching gears just a little bit, let's talk about social media. It's like so pervasive. It's part of everyone's life. How large a role do you think it plays in your space? I already know the answer to this question, but I'm just going to ask anyway. And then also, when you think about social media, are there any game changers out there for you now? Like I look at platforms like Clubhouse and Twitter's coming out with a competing feature. How do you think that those platforms will play a role in something as physical and visual as dance?
Well, the first part of the question, right now, literally my entire business depends on Instagram. Like at the moment, within a pandemic, the way I promote my classes, I promote my boot camps, I promote myself, I sell stuff, it's all through social media. Of course, people go to my website, but they're directed to my website
Right.
via Instagram and social media. So at this point in my life, or like I said, within a pandemic, I depend 100% on social media. My followers, my students, they look for my updates and things like that all on social media. So I think it has become an essential part of businesses in general. Not, I don't think only dancers, right? I think
Right.
in general businesses are just relying on social media so much, and it has given us so much reach, right? Because you can reach everywhere in the world, and people are super engaged. Like, people are addicted to social media. So while it's a complicated reality, it's also a tool, right? And if you understand how to use it to your advantage, it can really help you grow your business. And then about the other platforms, I mean, it's complicated because, for example, Clubhouse, for me, I find it like I go into Clubhouse to listen to conversations and to grow. And I think that that's more how I would use it than really to promote myself as a dancer, unless there's like a forum, right? Where I think that, like, I think that could make a huge difference between a person who can be a teacher and a mentor and a person who just dances well.
Mhm.
Because if you're articulate, you can have a conversation about dance, about your technique, about your goals as a dancer, or the things that you're doing as a dancer. Clubhouse can be a game changer because it can really mark the difference between just a performer and a dancer, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, right? And who you can maybe trust to take your kids to, right? Somebody that you can hear talk and be like, oh, my values are aligned with this person, or I like this person's philosophy of teaching, or whatever. So if you don't have not the capacity, but if you've never like really even thought about the way you teach or the things that you're putting out to the world, maybe Clubhouse is not something that is going to make much of a difference for you, or maybe not in a positive way. But definitely, if you cannot put a video of yourself out there, like, it almost feels for a lot of dancers that Clubhouse is pretty pointless.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to me because when I took a look at Clubhouse, the thing that I saw for dancers was the opportunity to explore some of the challenges in the dance community, right? So at the beginning of the summer, we had a lot of conversations about race in the salsa community. At the beginning of this summer, we had a lot of conversations about pay inequity in terms of gender in the salsa community when we're thinking about performers. And I don't know if that's the space to grow, right? So I don't know, because it's such a visual thing. Dance is such a visual thing. To be on an audio platform, where is it going?
I think that maybe it's a little, I'm a little narrow-minded in that sense, but I feel like throughout the salsa world, there are some people who are kind of like the top dancers, top instructors, the more like the people who represent the salsa world, right? Well, these people are probably part of the problem, and they're not having the conversations. I think that the conversations that I had between students, right, or between people who attend congresses, people who don't necessarily live off of dancing, right, who have other careers and who have opportunities to see life maybe a little bit differently. So I think that that's a huge challenge if we want to like think about Clubhouse as a place where you can have these conversations and these discussions, and where you can almost like try to make a change. But if the people who are on top are not being involved in these conversations, it seems like it's harder to change. But on the other hand, we are not teachers without students. So if this, like, it also could potentially raise the bar if students are having these conversations as like, I'm not gonna support or accept, I don't know, a teacher who's a misogynist, right? Then that kind of forces, those teachers to evaluate the things that they're putting out there. So it's a little bit, it's still kind of like, I don't know where it's going to go. And I don't know if it's going to have a lot of impact in the salsa world.
These are turbulent times, to say the least. whether we're talking about the pandemic, inequality, injustice, economic and political instability. We just had an insurrection in the US, which was fun. Have these times influenced your work artistically and practically, actually?
So I feel like this sounds strange, but I feel like I found sort of my voice and my purpose because, like I said before, even if we talk about feminism, right? When I came to my old dance company, I saw all this kind of oppression. I know this sounds like a big word, but there was some sort of oppression, right? Of like being a strong woman and blah 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 blah. So I didn't get it, and I was very upset constantly, and I didn't understand that it was kind of feminism, right? But then when the world started changing and this conversation started, I was like, oh wait, I'm a feminist. What I was mad about was misogyny. Oh, this all makes sense, right? So then it gave me such a clear path, right? It allowed me to be like, oh wait, now I have a purpose. I can direct my dancing somewhere. I can say something with my choreographies. It makes sense for me to stand in front of students and be like, no, you got to do things like this because you got to be like this. And there's a bigger purpose to just the Susie Q. So even now with the pandemic, right? Like everything that happens is sort of like, it's sort of like inspiration, right? Like even, I don't know, I started my first choreo course in the middle of the pandemic when we were like in lockdown. And I was like, okay, I need a song that talks about, stay at home, be responsible, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like it has, and some people might see it as almost like I'm being opportunistic, right? But I feel like for me, dancing before was just dancing, or was like going out to run and exercise, right? Now, for me, it feels like everything that's going on in the world is an inspiration. It's maybe not the right word, right? But it gives me inspiration to kind of like use my art to relay that message, and it just gives so much purpose to my life because I don't feel like I'm just a dancer anymore. I feel like I'm part of the conversation with my skill, right? I don't have to get out and try to do something that I'm not an expert on, but with my skill, I can actually be a part of the conversation and the change, hopefully.
Right, right. No, I think that's amazing. And I think that that is part of what connects the strong community that you have, the strong community that you've built, is people who are also like-minded. Lastly, what's next for you? Where should we watch, tune in, read up, etc.?
So, social media, we got to go back to that, right? I feel like everything that I do always goes back. It's always announced, so you can always find it on my Instagram, Karel Flores. I'm very excited because I'm starting a project with all my world teams, and we're doing choreographies. I'm trying to, I feel, like I've lacked motivation during the pandemic, and it's hard to continue to train and to dance. And I'm not alone in this, right? And I feel like how it has affected almost my mental health. I was just talking to my boyfriend today about it. It's like, I don't feel like doing anything, but then when I don't do anything, I feel worse, and then I feel worse and I don't do anything, right? And it's like, I just read an article in the New York Times, which is fabulous about this. And it says like action, don't wait for motivation to take action, but take action that will bring motivation. So I'm really determined to kind of like, as a community, which is another word that I got in trouble for recently, but as all of us hand in hand together try to push ourselves through dancing and to get out of this kind of like pandemic rut, which I think it's very important for our mental health and for our physical health in general. So that's really important to me right now. And yeah, you can just, check it out all on social media. You can go to karelflores.com to also see what I have going on, and karelfloresonline.com to take salsa classes from basics. So if you've never taken a salsa class, you can go there and then just start building up your salsa career.
We have a lot of new dancers that are just waiting to be born. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Karel. This was excellent. I really enjoyed this interview, and thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. I think it's really needed. It's really crucial.